The Houston Astros are on a scorching tear as they were able to shake off a rough start to start the season and are in complete control of the American League West. And here with me to discuss the Astros' success and their fandom is Houston Astros fan Rich Swift. And Rich, I really do appreciate you being a part of this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show, taking time out of your busy schedule. Starting off, Rich, one thing I wanted to ask you was, how did you become a fan of the Houston Astros? What led to them becoming one of your favorite teams?
Honestly, probably 1979, getting my first pack of Topps baseball cards and seeing the Astros uniform, the Astrodome, and they had a pitcher named J.R. Richard who just recently passed away, and I became a huge fan from there.
What is one of your first memories of being an Astro fan? What or who really stood out to you?
There's several, but one that really sticks out is 1986, Mike Scott throwing a no-hitter to capture the National League West Division title. That was huge. It's up there. It's definitely up there. Even though a lot of people are going to say it's tainted, it's still an achievement. You still have to hit the ball. You still have to pitch. You still have to play defense. So, I mean, that was definitely a moment I'll never forget watching that.
I know the Astros were really having a lot of momentum coming off of last season's appearance in the American League Championship Series in the 2020 playoffs. 16 teams having to get past the likes of the Minnesota Twins and then the Oakland A's, falling short to the Tampa Bay Rays. Going into the year, what were you expecting the Astros to do, especially down Justin Verlander?
I had pretty high expectations, but they were realistic. Without Justin Verlander, I knew the pitching might be suspect, and it's been better than I expected. Luis Garcia's been amazing stepping in. Greinke's stepped up. Lance McCullers has been great. So the pitching's been good, and the trade deadline really helped with the bullpen.
How big has the acquisition of Keone Graveman from Seattle been for the Astros, especially their bullpen, and just adding a little more stability and a little more depth to that pen, especially when it comes to a playoff situation?
Oh, to me, that was huge. It's going to help down the line going into the playoffs, giving Presley a little bit of a breather and not having to rely on him every night. It's going to help with Christian Javier having so many innings. The whole bullpen. Plus, I mean, the guy's been one of the top 4 relievers in the American League for the last few years. So we had Presley, who was a great closer, and now we have Graveman. To me, it may not be up there with Kimbrel and Hendricks from the White Sox, but it's really close.
Was there a particular point during the season that you were absolutely confident that the Astros were making a return to the playoffs?
Yeah, probably early May, we went on a little bit of a run. And when some of the younger guys started stepping up, I really was like, yeah, we got this. After we rebounded from a losing streak in April, I believe like the 9th through the 22nd, where we were 2-9, and it got a little sketchy there. Once we rebounded from that, I'm like, yep, all right, it's going to be a good season. We got this. We'll make playoffs, at least wild card, if not the division.
Was there a time during the season at any point where you're thinking, maybe the Astros just don't have the juice to make it back to the playoffs?
That 2-9 run in early April. Without Verlander, we had some injuries. So it definitely got a little sketchy, but once we came past that, the confidence was there.
So, Rich, looking at the playoffs, particularly in the divisional round, or depending on who you face, who do you think the Astros best match up with in the American League? Is it a team like the Rays? Is it a team like the White Sox? Could it even be some of the other teams still fighting for the last playoff spots, like the A's, the Mariners, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, even the Red Sox?
Obviously, I want to say the Yankees, because we've seemed to have their number, although, eventually that tide may turn. But I would say the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the A's of the teams that are in contention. I have the most confidence against those teams.
Who scares you as an Astros fan in a playoff matchup? I know some of the teams already mentioned. Could it be Toronto, especially how they're surging as well? Or could it even be a team like Tampa, the team that knocked off the Astros in the American League Championship Series last year?
Honestly, Toronto. If Toronto can make the wild card, they're scary. They're a scary team. They could just take off.
With the Astros being led by Dusty Baker, a manager who has a pretty large and lengthy resume, probably one of the best managers yet to win a World Series title. What were your initial thoughts about him taking over after the firings of AJ Hinch and the rest of the front office? Was there a concern? What did you know about his reputation? And what has won you over about the way Dusty manages a ball club and the dugout, the clubhouse, and everything about that?
I would definitely say Dusty was the right man at the right time because league-wide, Dusty had respect, and well-deserved respect. So the Astros needed, with all the controversy, they needed Dusty. They needed that calming presence. They needed that person with the respect of the league to be there. My anticipation was Dusty would put the team on the field and the guys would play hard for Dusty. I think he's one of those guys that if you're in the foxhole, you're giving that man everything you got. So I think he would definitely bring the most out of the players, especially the young guys. And there were a lot of young guys, having to fill in some roles. So my expectations were definitely playoffs. And, obviously I would love to see Dusty get that World Series and solidify his legacy as one of the all-time great managers.
One little stigma that tends to surround Dusty Baker is just how he handles a pitching staff. You always hear about some of the times in Chicago, just what happened with Kerry Wood and Mark Pryor and things like that. Even San Francisco, where some of those arms didn't hold up as long. Didn't really hear about that much in Washington, but I guess the reputation sort of precedes Dusty Baker when it comes to how he's known to really use up his best pitchers when he needs to, and sometimes doesn't account for the future. But to you, do you feel like that's just sort of a fallacy, or what have you been able to notice as a fan of the Astros and how he manages a pitching staff?
In a way, yes, because I think you have to manage to your strengths. And some of the other places, his strengths were starting rotation, and the bullpens may have been a little bit subject. So once he got into certain situations, especially in playoffs or playoff hunts in tough divisions, you had to roll with your strengths. So could he have made a few mistakes? Yeah, maybe, but everybody does that. I mean, the Red Sox, when they left Pedro Martinez in that game, that's a famous call. So unless we walk a mile in his shoes, I don't think we fully understand. Of course, it's easy to second guess, but I give him slack. I think he's done a great job with the pitching staff this year.
In the past, the Astros have had arms like Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole and, of course, Zach Greinke. What do you feel has been the strength of this year's Astro team, and what do you think makes them different from some of the previous versions of the Astros playoff teams?
Honestly, number one, I think team chemistry. Those guys love playing together. They've come together in this us against the world mentality. I think they're getting strength out of everybody at every stadium booing them. With that, okay, it's us against the world. Let's go out and show everybody. I think Carlos Correa has been huge in unifying that team. He's definitely been a leader. The offense obviously has been huge. They've been right with the White Sox all year long on stats 1 and 2 in the league with average. The biggest thing for me is they don't strike out. They put the ball in play. They make the other teams play defense and throw a lot of pitches.
And now we come to the playoff predictions. Looking at the World Series, who do you have coming out of the American League? Who do you have coming out of the National League? Who wins the World Series? And how many games?
So I thought about this. I have two answers for you. One is my current answer with my heart, and that's the Astros versus the Giants. And to me, that would go 7 games. So before the season started, I actually picked the White Sox and the Padres. I think that still has potential, but I think the National League is kind of wide open. I think the American League, you got to say, you don't have to say, but the Astros, White Sox are definitely the favorites and the deepest teams. So if you put it to me right now, I'm going to say the Astros and the Giants. I think the Giants is just a magical year for them. Everything seems to be going their way. So I'll take the Giants. I'm going to say, I got to say with my heart, the Astros in 7. But if it's not the Astros, I'd say it's going to be the Giants in 7 over whoever they play.
as we start to wrap this up, and of course, I really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, do you have anyone you want to give any shout outs to? Is there anything you want to promote? And how can people reach out to you on social media to talk about Houston Astros baseball?
Well, as a lot of people know, I do run the Ty Cobb Over 40 Baseball League locally. So there's the Ty Cobb Senior Baseball League on Facebook and Instagram. People can always reach me there, or just reach me on Facebook, Rich Swift.